My love affair with this building started in, 1957, 58. I was about 8 years old at the time, and I remember I used to come down here with my dad, and we used to watch the people who were restoring the building. And my abiding memory from that time is the smell of sawdust whenever you came in here. And the one morning we came in, one Sunday morning, they got some of the flags up, literally just behind where I'm sitting. And they showed us where the earth was burnt from the original hearth that was in here. But yeah, I've loved the building ever since.
We were out of school from, I left school in July in Fisher Street School, and we didn't have the new school open until June 1940, so I'm afraid we ran wild a bit. And I learned the area quite well, and there was this very old house. And when we finally did get to school, I made friends with a lad named Maurice Farnell. And he told me his house was 600 years old, and I said, so much, we had a good laugh. But he took me there. And when I saw it, I realised he was telling me the truth. He'd got a moat round it still. And he took me through that into the living room. The room was about this big, and the fireplace was the full size of your brickwork, wide open. And in this fireplace, inside it, was an old lady with a pointed hat. No, I'm not joking. Stirring a great big pot that was hanging off some brackets above the fire. And she was going around with it. Very nice people, they were lovely, but it was a throwback to 1800. And I was absolutely agog because he told me how old he was. I honestly didn't believe him until I saw it. Then I knew he was telling the truth.
Well, as a child, I used to go to school with the son of the guy who ran the Manor House, Chris Dryden. He's now actually got a shop up on Stone Cross doing kitchens and bedrooms. But his mum and dad's John Dryden, and I can't remember his wife's name, but John Dryden used to run the Manor House then. And I used to go and play with Chris. We used to go to school together. Occasionally had lunch up there, much to his dad's disgust, because he owned the place, and obviously me stopping for dinner would have been an expense. And me being who I am, I used to like some of the nicer things off the menu. So yeah, Chris used to say, "Oh, do you want to stop for dinner?" I said, "Yeah, okay." And I'll have that for dessert and that for me. And so yeah, and his dad would be going, "No, you don't want that." But yeah, it was good fun.
With the Manor House, because I lived just down the road, probably about 2 minutes away, as a child we were always playing in the grounds of the Manor House, sometimes when we weren't supposed to be. And as I got older, I tended to use it as a pub, and it was a restaurant. And again, a good memory of there was it had a knight on a horse, and every now and again throughout the evening you'd be enjoying your meal, and it'd flare up. So it'd make a noise, and you'd get this horse and this the knight actually flaring up. And I'd love to see a photo, and there must be a photo about it, but it was actually in the corner of the Great Hall. But you could, if you went upstairs, you could watch it off the balcony, and it was massive. It must have been about 6 feet. So where they had it from or where it went, I don't know, but it was a real feature of the building.
The funny thing is, I don't think anybody ever, if you talk to anybody who lived by it, they used to say, "Oh, that old dump," and things like that, They weren't over impressed because it was so old. And even the council were going to knock it down. So its rating wasn't high. And the people who lived there, if I remember rightly, there were 3 families living in it all at once. And Maurice Farnell, he was a really good mate, his family was one of them. And they wanted to leave, but they didn't want to leave. They wanted a new place to live, which had got all the facilities.
It was a tip. The building had still got the brickwork around the outside of it. There was a myth at the time that the Manor House had gone, and in its place was a huddle of brick tenements, which the council was going to bulldoze, and they were going to build a block of flats.
About 1961-ish, thereabouts, I heard they were going to knock it down. And then we heard another story that the man who was going to knock it down had swung the ball, hit the wall, saw the state of it and how old it was, and panicked and rang the council and said, you can't do this. And they say it saved the day, apparently. So the story went, I don't know how true it was, and it turned then into a restaurant.
Well, it's just the fact that it's you just walk up to the house and it's just really kind of imposing. It just stands above you when you look up into it, and it's got so many features that are really nice. You walk through, I mean, I remember it as well as a kid when it was a restaurant. It was the Manor House restaurant, and I used to go there with my nan a lot, and I remember it used to have, obviously the moat was full with the water and everything. So I remember it from there. So even then, when it was a fully fledged restaurant, it had a kind of a supernatural vibe to it. Subconsciously, probably enough that it stuck with me enough to make me think, oh, I'll make a film here one day. We all love horror, but we all love the British Gothic horror stories from Hammer, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. And we said, well, why don't we try and do something like that? And it's got such character and vibrancy and so many areas as well that it's got that you can just kind of get lost in, and just not even about film related, but you would just be there going, oh, this is really interesting, I want to know a bit more about this. So yeah, it's just a fascinating place.
To be honest, I'd never heard of the Manor House at first, and there was a film being made locally in West Bromwich at the Manor House called The House of Screaming Death, and I was lucky enough to be offered a role in that film. It was a horror film. People had gone out to look for relevant places to film the film and considered that to be quite an eerie building. So, like I say, I'd never seen it before, never heard of it before, so I turned up on the first day of filming, and I was amazed at how atmospheric and how eerie the place was. I think I filmed there for a couple of weeks at least. Some of the filming was night scenes, so I got to see the place in the day and also at night. And it was equally as eerie in the day as it was at night. Probably more enhanced at night, but even in the day, you could be in a room in the Manor House and you could hear noises and you weren't quite sure what they were.
In 2012, we were putting together a horror anthology, and we were looking at a building that would be gothic-y enough and Hammer-esque enough to suit our needs. And we looked around and we came to the Manor House, and we asked, and we're told yes, we could actually film there. So with the help of Sandwell and Dudley Council and the staff there, we did a couple of blocks of filming through 2015 and early 16. And it was fantastic. Beautiful building, great team who worked there, and the locations were amazing. The opportunity to work with the wonderful Ian McNeice, who also adored the building, was phenomenal. The room we shot with Ian was the Great Hall, and we also screened the film there across Halloween. So it's quite meta being in the same room you shot in and seeing it on camera while you're sitting in it. So that was a bit interesting. And of course, our film was a horror anthology, which did feature its own ghosts. And, I kind of figured that the Manor House would save me some budget because it has its own spooky history.
Well, I got there when it was light, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. The building structure, the architecture was just out of this world. Then when it became nighttime, it became very spooky. Just the atmosphere. Wherever you went, you just felt there was something around you, and there was just always something happening. There was always noises happening, things were falling, things you just hear, like something being thrown, or you'd hear a voice. There was just always something going on at night time. When we were filming the dining room scene, the sound guys were saying that they were hearing lots and lots of unexplained noises. And when I was having my makeup done, me and the makeup artist Jerry, we were in the side part of the house and we were on the upstairs, and there was a bathroom next to us, and we just kept hearing things being thrown up against the wall. We heard the water going, and we just kept hearing bang after bang after bang, and we thought someone's in there and just trying to spook us out. Once all my hair and makeup was done, we got up, we went in, nobody in there at all. So we then both ran downstairs.
On a couple of occasions, strange things did occur. We saw some other things, some of the cast, some of the crew definitely saw and felt stuff. It's extraordinarily unnerving late at night, but it's also a wicked building with a fantastic history. It was a genuine honour and a pleasure to be able to film there because it gave our movie that setting that it needed, that Hammer-esque feel that we were wanting to capture. And as I say, Ian loved it to bits there, we loved it to bits there, and we relish every opportunity to go back because they're fantastic.
It was really creaky, and again, you're always aware, whatever you use that building for, you were aware of its age and also its history, really. Because, as I said, we've done girls' tours there and we've gone to talks, and it's just a fabulous place. And a friend of mine was at sixth form at the time, and I think they had rented it out, and I can't remember what year this would have been. But they had one of the smaller buildings around the back, and they had a disco in there, and I know they've done music events in there. So it's just not the Great Hall itself, it's all the grounds around there are fabulous.
Yeah, I mean it was on so many levels. You came down the drive, under the archway, and then you came into the front door through these big glass front doors, and then the main restaurant area was off to the right. It was like a big banqueting room, if you like. Then there were some stairs that went up, and off the top round the corner to the bar upstairs. You stepped over a big beam to go into the downstairs bar, and then if you went down to this state bar, you went down some more steps and round the corner. So it was, and then there was another function room just as you came in under the archway that again was up steps. So everything was on so many different levels. It was very quirky, yeah.
I used to take, when I was managing a department of Walsall Conduits, which was in Dial Lane in West Brom, it isn't there now, I used to take people there to eat and tell them all about it as it was, as I knew it then. And it always won one or two orders we might not have got. And the upstairs was frightening. Without a word of a lie, that's a flat floor, yeah? This one was like that. I've never walked on a floor like it in my life. It was in every direction all at once. You felt very ungain and somewhat drunk walking it. So I never went up there again.
In those days, it was owned by Ansell's, I think. We supplied the kitchens then, and then later on, it was run by David and Sue Bird, and we were still supplying then. They used to have a restaurant, and then there was a steak bar further down that looked out over the moat. So there were two aspects to the restaurants. And in those days, it was the place to be in West Brom. It was a busy place, and we used to go up like 2 or 3 times a week.
My wife Linda and myself, when we first got together, this was one of our places. We used to come down here. We decided to have our wedding reception here at the Manor House. The extension that was built in the 60s, early 60s, is known by the people at the Manor House as the 60s. Then it was just a function room. But we decided to have it there because it was a quiet space, and they laid the food on. And it was a great occasion, especially in the afternoon, because we decided we were going to dress the room up ourselves. So after the wedding ceremony, got changed into our jeans and T-shirts, came down here and set the room up. But at one point, Pam, who was the manager then, she had to go out, and she said literally, on your way out, just pull the door to behind you. So we'd got the run of the Manor House, and we were like a couple of kids.
It's got such diversity of character, it offers such a range for what we were after, because our stories are set across a multitude of time periods. Unfortunately, the house reflects those different time periods. The 1800s, the 1970s, right through to modern times. So we've got all these little elements that we can tie together. Really, really perfect. And some of the other spots, we do them up in different ways, and they take on a whole new character. Very versatile. It's got so much to offer.
I used to take people there quite regularly, but it was all business. You drove up in your car, you let them have a good look, see what it was like, and watch their eyes roll and see, and then take them inside, and if you were brave enough, upstairs into the wobbly floor. And generally, you could say they loved going there. So it was my pièce de résistance to take them there to get an order or make a sale,
We just used to go so many times, both business and pleasure really. As a teenager, just good times having a drink up there, toddling back down the road because it was only down the road. I had my stag night up there as well. And I remember Sue Bird giving me some marital advice in some kind of a drunken state at one point, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But I suppose that's probably one of the latter memories I've got. But it was just a great place, and I suppose for us as a business back in the early days, it was quite a feather in the cap to be able to serve them and supply them and be part of their success.
And we've attended concerts there and events such as we've done Ghosts in Ghost Stories, we've toured the building. Because it's owned now by a museum, so they regularly guided to. So we've gone for some of the Halloween events, and they're really scary because of whether it's haunted, we don't know, but apparently just the ghost hunting. So of course when you're going around the building and it's dark, it is quite spooky really. But from cradle to grave, I think I'd probably use the Manor House.
Yeah, I remember the place when I was a little kid, and like I said, whenever I think about this place, the first thing I think about is when I was a kid, and as soon as you walked in, sawdust. You could, because it's oak as well, and smell. Whenever I smell sawdust now, I think, oh God, yeah, the manor. Yeah, I love it to bits, and I hope that I'm still here doing tours when the children who come here now bring their children. Be good, that.